The icy winds howl a tale of a bygone era. From the fjords of Scandinavia came the Vikings, known for their courage and ferocity. Their longships, with fearsome dragon heads, sliced through the waves. They arrived, they triumphed, and they etched their legacy into history. However, the Vikings were not merely ruthless invaders. They were also masterful artisans, daring explorers, and captivating storytellers. Their sagas spoke of gods and monsters, of Valhalla and the underworld. The clash of axes on shields, the cries of warriors, the overwhelming scent of blood and dread. This was the reality the Vikings inhabited. Their incursions were infamous, instilling fear in all who opposed them. Yet beneath the brutality was a sophisticated society governed by a stringent honor code. Adhering to this code garnered respect and secured one's place in Valhalla. At the core of Viking society was a deep reverence for strength. Bravery in combat was the ultimate measure of a warrior's value. Those who fought valiantly were celebrated with glory and honor. Loyalty was fundamental to their code. Betrayal was a serious offense. Reputation was of utmost importance. The consequences for violating the Viking code were diverse and often brutal. Some punishments were swift and ruthless, while others prolonged suffering. Lesser offences endured public humiliation, like branding or flogging. These non-lethal punishments carried significant social disgrace. Thieves could lose a hand, while traitors faced brutal retribution. Heinous crimes met with ritualistic executions, epitomizing Viking cruelty. The Vikings, molded by unforgiving conditions, sought Valhalla. Valhalla was more than paradise, it was an inspiration. Warriors needed to perish valiantly in combat to enter. This belief ignited their bravery. Their gods, like Odin and Thor, reflected their harsh world. Legends were filled with betrayal and vengeance. This code was passed down through stories and sagas. Living by this code earned respect and a place among the gods. In a world where words held immense power, oaths were sacred to the Vikings. A man's promise was his bond, and breaking it was an unforgivable offense. Oaths were sworn on revered objects like Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, or upon ancient runestones. These vows governed every aspect of Viking society, from trade agreements to alliances. To break a vow was a transgression against the social order. The consequences varied depending on the severity of the offense. The gods themselves demanded retribution for such transgressions. Reputation held immense value in Viking society. A man's honor mirrored his actions, demanding retribution for any affront. Minor insults could spiral into violent feuds lasting generations. Blood feuds were intricate and often lethal aspects of Viking life. If a man was slain, his kin were bound to seek vengeance. Neglecting this duty would disgrace the entire clan. Blood feuds perpetuated a relentless cycle of violence. Trial by combat, a sacred test. When conflicts couldn't be resolved, the Vikings resorted to trial by combat. It was a sacred ordeal invoking the judgment of the gods. The winner was believed to be chosen by divine will. Trials by combat were highly ritualized with strict rules. Combatants faced each other in a marked arena. The fight continued until one was killed or surrendered. The result was seen as the will of the gods, unquestionable. The Thing, where justice was met. Viking justice relied on blood feuds and personal oaths, but also had a communal assembly called the Thing. Free Vikings, both men and women, gathered to discuss laws and resolve disputes. A respected elder known as the law speaker presided, reciting laws from memory. Disputes were presented, allowing both sides to argue their case. Witnesses testified, evidence was shown, and judgments were made. The Blood Eagle, a gruesome spectacle. Among the Vikings' brutal punishments, the Blood Eagle is the most chilling. This ritualistic execution was reserved for the gravest crimes, particularly treachery. The process began with the victim restrained, their back exposed. The executioner would make a cruel incision down the spine, separating the ribs. The ribs were then splayed outwards like grotesque wings. The executioner would then pull the lungs from the wound, draping them over the victim's shoulders. Carving, fear branding and mutilation. The blood eagle was a rare but terrifying symbol of Viking brutality. More common were cruel punishments like branding. Branding marked criminals and outcasts permanently. A searing iron left grotesque marks on the face or hands. Mutilation was another favoured method. Thieves had their hands severed, liars their tongues cut out, and violators of sexual taboos were castrated. These acts were about retribution and preventing repeat offences. The agony of exposure, left to the elements. The Nordic environment, while a source of sustenance and beauty for the Vikings, could also be a tool for their cruel punishments. Exposure, abandoning a victim to the mercy of the elements, was a slow and excruciating death sentence. The victim, deprived of clothing and possessions, would be left bound or isolated in a desolate area. Hypothermia would set in rapidly, causing the body's core temperature to drop drastically. As their body began to shut down, they might experience a strange sense of tranquility. The oar's bite, a slow and painful death. The Vikings, renowned for their seafaring prowess, turned maritime tools into instruments of punishment. The oar's bite was a torturous end for those who committed offences at sea. The victim, secured to a heavy oar, was dragged beneath the surface. Gasping for breath, they were submerged over and over. A stark reminder of the sea's might and the dire consequences of betrayal. The serpent's embrace, internal torment. The Vikings' grasp of anatomy was basic, yet they mastered the art of inflicting pain. Known as the serpent's embrace, this method targeted the victim's insides, turning their own body into a source of torment. This gruesome punishment involved making the victim swallow a live creature, often a venomous snake. Trapped within the digestive system, the creature would writhe and bite, causing severe pain and internal bleeding. The victim's agony was evident in their screams, a testament to the internal torment they endured. Death, when it finally arrived, was a merciful release. Drowning in terror, ritualistic sacrifice. The Vikings' connection with their gods blended reverence with fear. Human sacrifice, though rare, did occur. Drowning was a favoured method, especially in bogs and lakes. These ceremonies reveal the sinister aspects of Viking spirituality. Beyond the grave, the rituals continue. The Vikings' obsession with death extended into the afterlife. They meticulously prepared their deceased for this passage. Offenders faced retribution even in death. Burial items could be instruments of torment. Corpses were disfigured to prevent solace. Punishment extended into the next realm. Thralls of war, a life in chains. For those who survived a Viking raid, captivity awaited. Marched to longships, their future was grim. The journey back was fraught with danger. Those who did faced grueling labour and servitude. Women and children were tasked with domestic chores. The existence of a thrall was one of relentless hardship. Breaking the spirit, torture as a weapon. For the Vikings, torture was a tactic to crush their foes and spread terror. Their techniques were diverse and savage. Deprivation of sleep, exposure to harsh conditions, and physical assaults were common. Mutilation was a testament to the Vikings' ferocity. These acts were public displays, delivering a stark warning to all. The price of defiance. Among the captured, a few dared to challenge their Viking captors. Their resistance symbolizes the unyielding human spirit. Some tried to flee, often ending in failure. Others fought back, but rebellions were crushed. These acts of defiance ignited hope. The Vikings had no patience for resistance. They retaliated with cruelty, ensuring punishment. Seeds of terror spreading fear and submission. The Vikings' brutality was a calculated strategy to instill fear and ensure dominance. They recognized terror's power to immobilize even the most courageous. The name Viking became synonymous with dread, their longships symbols of doom. This fear facilitated conquest, as few dared oppose such a merciless foe. The medieval imagination created a terrifying array of torture devices. These tools were a reminder of the authorities' dominance. The rack pulled the victim's body beyond its limits. The Iron Maiden impaled the victim inside. These instruments instilled fear and ensured obedience. The Church played a pivotal role in the acceptance of torture. Viewing torture as divine justice, the Church aimed to cleanse souls and eliminate heresy. The Inquisition symbolized torture and persecution. Suspected heretics endured brutal tortures to force confessions. Inquisitors, empowered by papal authority, defended their actions as soul-saving measures. Torture was seen as a path to redemption. Pain was thought to cleanse the soul and expel demonic forces. This rationale enabled severe acts in God's name. The Church's endorsement of torture eroded its moral standing. The cruelty of priests and bishops planted seeds of doubt and rebellion. This led to the weakening of its influence and the rise of secular humanism. Confessions of the damned extracting truth through pain. In the medieval era, obtaining a confession was the primary aim of any interrogation. Torture was considered a valid method to uncover the truth. The physical suffering would overpower the mental resolve, compelling the victim to say anything to end the torment. Confessions obtained through such means were frequently unreliable. The instruments used were as diverse as they were horrifying. Thumbscrews would crush the bones of the fingers, the strappado would dislocate shoulders and stretch ligaments, and there was always the looming threat of fire. This dependence on torture had a chilling impact on justice. Innocent individuals admitted to crimes they did not commit. The belief that pain revealed the truth undermined the presumption of innocence. Public spectacles, terror as entertainment. In the medieval era, torture was a public event serving as grim amusement. These events quenched the crowd's thirst for violence. People traveled to witness these executions. The condemned, paraded through the streets, faced sympathy and ridicule. Execution methods were savage: hanging, drawing and quartering, burning at the stake. Leaders recognized fear's effectiveness in control. Throughout history, the infliction of pain has been a chillingly effective tool for control. The Vikings and their medieval counterparts understood this implicitly. Torture wasn't just about punishment, it was a spectacle of suffering designed to send a brutal message. Imagine standing in the town square, the air thick with anticipation and dread. A hush falls over the crowd as the condemned is led to the platform. The charges are read aloud, the sentence pronounced, and then the punishment begins. Every cry of pain serves as a stark reminder. This is what happens to those who defy the established order. Public executions were meticulously orchestrated events designed to instill fear and awe. The authorities knew the power of such spectacles to reinforce their dominance and deter rebellion. The message was unmistakable: comply or face dire consequences. The Vikings, though long gone, have left us a legacy that is intricate and multifaceted. They were not just raiders, but also traders, explorers and artisans. Their story is a rich tapestry woven from threads of violence and ambition. Their influence is evident in place names and words we use. Their voyages pushed the boundaries of the known world. Their trade networks linked distant cultures. Their spirit and resilience remind us that the human spirit can endure and triumph.